Back when the Constitution was drafted, it was very fresh in the memories of our founding fathers, the tyranny and the abuse that a large, uncontrolled government had. And they wanted to make absolutely clear that our new federal government, a government that they required was necessary in order to make the nation thrive, prosper, and even survive. But they wanted to make sure that that nation had limited powers and it was not going to engage in the tyrannical and abusive practices that the former government had. And therefore, when they set up the new federal government, they set it up so it would only have those powers specifically set out in the Constitution, and those powers that the founding fathers thought was necessary to the government, but no powers beyond what was necessary for the government to thrive and prosper. When the Commerce Clause of the Constitution that gives Congress the power to regulate commerce among the several states, it was meant to talk about trade, regulation, river traffic, road traffic, that kind of thing. It was considered to be, at that time, back when the Constitution was drafted, a very limited set of powers that the Congress would have over the people of the United States. As the country became larger and the economy became more interdependent with railroads and the rise of large corporations, a need was seen for greater federal intervention in the economy of the United States. But it really was not until the New Deal that that trend took off with incredible rapidity. And it came to the point where at first it was the idea that we have to regulate not only commerce, not only the roads, the bridges, the canals, but we have to regulate the manufacturing of articles that go into commerce. And with the regulation of the manufacture of articles, Congress began to regulate wages, hours, and all sorts of things that had been previously in the province of the states. And finally, the trend reached its high point or low point, depending on one's point of view, with a case where a farmer who was trying to grow wheat on his own property for his own personal consumption was told, no, he can't do that because that regulation was going to have an impact on the national economy. That is, wheat he was growing for his own family meant that he was not buying wheat elsewhere, therefore there was an impact on the economy. And that has been considered, until recently, the farthest extent of the Commerce Clause ever. And with that case, the question naturally arose, what's left? What can Congress not regulate now if we can regulate the growing of wheat on a private individual's property? The health care bill tests the limits of the Commerce Clause, especially because of the individual mandate. The individual mandate requiring that all individuals, whether or not they want to, no matter what the state of their health is, no matter what the state of their financial health is, must go out and get health insurance or suffer the penalty of the federal government. Now, the problem here is that even after cases like the regulation of the wheat farmer that I mentioned a minute ago, we know quite clearly that there must be limits on the Commerce Clause. The Supreme Court, in a series of recent cases, began to look again very hard, for the first time since the New Deal, at Congress's other attempts to use the Commerce Clause to regulate all manner of activities. For example, the Supreme Court struck down the ability of Congress to regulate the activities in school zones, where a regulation against bringing guns into a school zone was found to be unconstitutional because it had nothing to do with commerce. It was just too disconnected from commerce, according to the Supreme Court. Same for a statute violating the Commerce Clause, where Congress said that violence against women was a federal crime because it impacted the Commerce Clause, or the impact on the Commerce Clause is what justified its regulation. The court said no. The court said as bad as this stuff is, as bad as violence against women is, it is not the province of the federal government under the Commerce Clause. The states are and have been perfectly capable of regulating and prohibiting such bad conduct, and they continue to regulate and prohibit that to this day. So why should Congress get involved? Under the Commerce Clause, The court said no, there is no connection between that activity and commerce. So now, when we're looking at the health care bill, you're asked, well, isn't insurance, isn't that part of commerce? Well, sure it is. But the decision not to enter into the marketplace, not to get insurance, a decision by an individual not to engage in commerce should not be considered part of commerce under any logical understanding of that. That is why we believe that this new health care bill raises serious constitutional concerns. And that is why, despite the talk of many people that this will survive a Supreme Court test, we believe it is very important that this issue get to the courts and get to the courts with briefing from Pacific Legal Foundation. We've had a good bit of experience on Commerce Clause issues. With the Endangered Species Act cases, we have argued in a number of cases that some species that do not cross state lines, that are not used in commerce, that are not hunted or fished, or otherwise used for any kind of economic activity, have no part in being regulated by Congress under the Commerce Clause. Some of these cases are still pending in the courts, and we think that our expertise on the Commerce Clause will be invaluable to the courts in understanding that, yes, when our founding fathers established limits on the power of Congress, and it only gave to Congress limited powers such as the Commerce Clause, the founding fathers meant what they said. They meant that our federal government, as important as that government is, must be limited in order to protect liberty. And our role right now is to make sure that our liberties are not taken away through excessive regulation of private activity, in this case, the activity of one's personal decision whether or not to buy health insurance or not to buy health insurance.
For more PLF videos, visit our YouTube channel.